is loaded with the hit.
Yo, what's good, everybody? This is Kehinde, ATO Worldwide.
And I'm Corey K. Good.
And welcome to
This That Type of Talk. Appreciate you guys for tuning in. And we got the world famous DJ EFN, who has earned acclaim for his exceptional skills as a DJ, producer, and music executive. Hailing from Miami, he's known for his deep roots in the underground hip hop scene and his role in bridging the gap between the independent and mainstream music worlds. His innovative mixtapes and collaborations with artists across different genres have significantly influenced the sound and direction of hip hop. Welcome to the stage, DJ EFN.
What's good? What's good? Thank you for having me.
What's going on, brother?
What up, bro?
Good,
Welcome
man.
to the show, and we appreciate your time today coming in and, talking with us and just spitting some game.
No, likewise, man. Happy New Year to everybody.
Happy New Year, brother.
Absolutely. So we know that you been in the game for a while. You got a lot of things going on. And just tell me a little bit about your career and how you started in hip hop and just getting your career started overall.
Man, that's a loaded question because there's just so much depth to that. But I mean, it's easy. I was a kid growing up in hip hop, coming of age in the 80s, late 80s, early 90s, high school in the 90s. Hip hop was just a part of the soundtrack. I grew up loving all kinds of music. I was a skater when I was young, and I listened to punk rock and rock and stuff and metal. But hip hop, started creeping in, and it was a new genre. But without knowing, we was living hip hop as kids. We, nobody said, "Hey, hip hop is this element and this element." I was breakdancing because that was the thing to do. I was doing graffiti because that was the thing to do. I was trying to rhyme even though I couldn't because that was the thing to do. And what happened with hip hop specifically and rap music is that it just felt like it was a part of my generation. It was something that was my time's music. And okay. I was really into like I loved watching movies that were timepieces that would like be from either like some Frank Sinatra shit or some World War II era stuff or the Vietnam era, a lot of that. And you heard all the music in that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
They had their music that when you heard it, it just, you knew that was that time period. Like movie Grease or something like that. And so I was into those movies, and I kind of always admired, like, man, that generation, they had like a whole thing. And hip hop felt like it was our thing, from our generation. Right. And then I kind of like not that I stopped liking all kinds of other music. I focused in on hip hop.
Mm-hmm.
And really, wanted to learn about the culture because, I'm not the generation of the pioneers, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
So I want to know about the roots of hip hop. And so I'm just becoming this hip hop head. And then, fast forward high school years, I find a group of like-minded friends who were hip hop heads as well. And locally, we wanted to see our local scene thrive, which at the time was like a baby hip hop scene compared to like New York or LA. And so we like, all right, I think we could do something locally to help our scene. We could contribute. And that's kind of like graduating high school kind of launched, self-launched myself into trying to make it a career.
Very nice. And you guys ended up starting Crazy Hood Productions. Is that what you were talking about when you said coming from the local side?
Yeah. My crew, we had a bunch of different names for our crew prior to that. And we were just like a little street crew. When I got serious, I came up with the name Crazy Hood Productions. It was 1993, was about to graduate high school. And I told a bunch of my friends, it was like 20 of us in the crew. And not everybody saw the vision. They was like, come on, man. Like, we don't got no ties to the industry. We not even, we like South Miami. Like, like, we don't know nobody. But, luckily a lot of my friends just said, we'll ride with you. We'll ride with you and we'll see where this goes. And then they did. And luckily they did. And we're here now.
Yes, sir.
Very cool. So your mixtapes have been influential in hip hop. Tell me about one of your best experiences behind the scenes creating the mixtape with what artists or what you feel like is one of your mixtapes that kind of, helped you really just put it all together.
Well, there's two pivotal points with the mixtapes that I think like really like helped me and changed the game in terms of like what I was doing and carving my own lane with mixtapes. One is, so we had no connections, like I said before. We had no industry connections,
Right.
nothing. Not even like we didn't have a really thriving hip hop scene in Miami. You know, it was very small. It was thriving, but on a very, you know,
Real
micro
small,
level.
yeah. Mhm.
So this convention came into Miami called How Can I Be Down?
Okay.
Right. And it was kind of like the main sponsor was like Def Jam. It was done by this dude named Peter Thomas, who was a Def Jam executive. And at that, you know, they were gonna basically come in, and it was a hip hop convention. It was all the industry was gonna come to Miami, and there was no way that I was gonna pass up that opportunity, you know, which I don't know if that would ever come again, that
Right.
people in the industry would be in my backyard. So I told my crew, I said, look, as many of us need to sign up. We need to pay the fee to get in, which was pretty expensive for us being, you know, teenagers and stuff at the time. We were broke. Um, we
Mhm.
all we made all these, you know, our shirts, our crazy hood shirts. We all got to wear it. We got to have the uniform on. We got to stand out, and we all had armed ourselves with cassette recorders, because at the time
Nice.
mixtapes is really on tape, and the only
Right.
thing you could record with was cassettes at the time. You know, CDs were
Right.
starting to come into play,
Right.
and whenever we see people, we got to get drops from them, and you know,
Okay.
saying a shout out from the artist, and boom, we hit the floor running, the ground running over there at How Can I Be Down, and we're seeing everybody, man. Busta Rhymes, Big Pun, Biggie, Heavy D, Pete Rock. I mean, you name it at that time in the 90s, whoever was popping, they were there. And not just them, the executives, the DJs, the people behind the scenes. Like, because I was reading the Source magazine, and I was like studying hip hop, so I kind of knew a lot of the people behind the scenes, and that's kind of like an era thing too, because we would read like the tape, the inserts in the tapes, and we would read all the credits, and you kind of start to get like an understanding of who's who and what's what and who's pulling the strings. And so I would step to the executives and get drops and introduce myself and all this stuff. And so those drops, and mind you, in those drops they were saying EFN. This was the mission: have them say EFN, have them say Crazy Hood, have them say either Kendall or Miami.
Okay.
And
Shout out to
ideally,
that
they
guy.
gotta say two of those four things. And if they say two of those, it's a win. So boom. So now I'm this local mixtape DJ, and now I got drops from, like, think about it, like Busta Rhymes, you know, with Biggie, and they saying shout out EFN from you know, Miami, Crazy Hood Productions. That was huge for someone
Definitely.
at that time, you know, a teenage kid just dropping mixtapes locally. Like, that was big, and that was a game changer for me. And so that started my mixtape career, and which helped really brand the whole crew in the company, kind of led the way for us. And then the next phase that was a game changer, or the next pivotal point, better said, is we had a store, and I'm kind of fast forwarding through a lot, but just to
Right.
talk about mixtapes, we had a store called Crazy Goods. It was a hip hop store, and they used to bring artists to our store to do in stores when they were in town. Like, it wasn't like the internet; you just blast it. They had to
Right.
go and physically talk to the people and show themselves. You know, basically shake hand and kiss baby, so they will go to the party or the event. And my boy brought Nori, and this is
Okay.
right when the
Yeah.
War
I
Report
remember
had already dropped, so that's an underground classic already.
that. I
I'm
remember that.
putting Nori on my mixtapes, Capone Nori. Nori,
Right.
you know, most of us in my crew are Latinos, so as Latinos, you know, we kind of gravitate to anybody who's Latino. And Nori was throwing in little
Right.
Spanish words. We knew he was Puerto Rican, half Puerto Rican, so we were excited to have Nori come through. And I had this little digital 4-track, which I still have here in my office,
Nice.
and I used to put beats on there. So whenever an artist would come by, I had a microphone, headphones, and a beat ready on the 4-track, and asked him to do a freestyle. And I had Nori do a freestyle. He did like 3 freestyles for me that day,
Okay.
and he won over like a DMX beat at the time. And from that point on, not only did we forge a relationship that endured, which you know, there's a story to that. But
Right.
him being on the mixtape at that time and doing the type of freestyle he did, he was like the first major national artist to really drop like a freestyle on my mixtape. And
Mhm.
mind you, at this time, I don't know if you know, but there's like the DJ Clues and the Tony
The
Tut, all
clue,
the
Right.
guys from
all
New York.
that. Yeah,
For
yeah,
sure.
yeah.
Definitely
They're
sure.
there, they're in it, so they're getting all these freestyles. I can't
Yeah,
compete with that.
right.
So
For
now to
sure.
get this freestyle, it was a game changer. And Nori was almost on all my mixtapes after that. And then getting Nori solidified me, kind of like co-signed me to get other artists, they're like, I'm like, yo, I got Nori on the freestyle. Now you did, Nori did, all right, and then they drop a freestyle.
Right, exactly. That's the calling card right there. Yeah.
Started, competing, and then I became like that mixtape dude in Miami, where the labels, the artists, the managers, they all came to me. Yeah, they tapped in with me to break records, to get their artists heard on the streets, which, the streets, that was the beginning of any promotional campaign for an artist.
So E, I'm gonna ask you a question, right?
Yeah.
That what year was that?
With Nori?
Yeah, when when you had him on the tape, right? The mixtape, right? So what year was that? That was
end of 97, I believe. End of 97 or early 98, something like that.
Okay, so I'm gonna tell you this is super crazy. This is how small the world. Oh my gosh. That was my first year at Killian, right? So I remember when my first introduction to a Crazy Hood tape, I was going to school, and I think it was like the first DMX album had dropped. That's when I first got hip to Clue and all the mixtapes and everything.
Right.
Glory. I was having this conversation, that Glory record, the one with Cam. That was the most. That's when I was like, okay, what is this? So I called my mother. I'm like, Ma, that's the one dude from New York, right? She was like, you got to come home. You got to come up to come see what it is. I'm like, so I spent, brother, like I was Miami, New York, my entire junior high school career, back and forth. That's when I got hip to it. When I was younger, I remember back when the Def Jam, the Def Jam South stuff, when y'all was doing, I was legit, bro, trying to lock in, like, you know what I'm saying? And my dad was like, they ain't trying to take you serious and all of that. And here we are today, brother. Like I showed my pops, I'm like, look, man, he was just like, wow, that's so lit. Like, but I say all that to say this, man, like it goes to show you how the love, the drive, the passion, the sincerity, and the consistency, it all paid off. It paid off. It literally paid off for all parties, man. No matter the level, no matter where you are in your life, it all paid off. And it's so lit to see a person from my crib, yo, doing what we all love to do. Like, that's where we from, bro. Like, South Miami, Southwest, Kendall, Ryan, it don't matter. Like, that's Miami right there. And I see what you become, dude, and it makes me happy. And I'm so proud. That's why I big you up all the time, because it makes me super happy to see you, man. Like, and it's so, man. And I appreciate you for being here, man. Thank you.
See, that's the 4-track, right? Right there.
Oh, yeah, in the background, I see it.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go. I wanted to ask you, so how do you balance your deep hip-hop roots from the underground scene to the mainstream hip-hop? How do you balance that nowadays with how you do your business?
Man, that's a good question. I mean, I just go with my gut, man. I've always I fuck with what I fuck with, and I don't fuck with what I don't fuck with.
Okay.
Right.
You know, I have these criterias in my mind that I go by, and I stick to like a moral compass. And, you know, and if I vibe with it, I vibe with it. Like, sometimes it doesn't make sense to people. Like, I have, like I said, there's these criteria that I've built up over the years. Like, for example, let's just say on a mixtape, people will be like, yo, how do you pick what you put on the mixtape? And then, there's just certain joints that I'm looking for that are like these exclusive leaks, underground leaks that no one can get hands on. That's part of it. Just something that's real dope that just speaks to me. I don't care if it's not an exclusive, it's dope. It's gonna go on there. It's me trying to put on for the crib, so making sure that I sprinkle it with some local artists and try to put people on, branding and my own crew as well. And then sometimes you might hear something, you're like, man, that wasn't that dope. So why is that on there? And you know what? It might have been a person that I came across that was just hella cool. They're grinding. I see that they putting in their work, and I'm like, you know what? Maybe the music isn't up to par yet. But they're putting in their work, and they're just hella cool. I don't know, whatever vibe was there, and I decided I wanted to help the person out.
Definitely, and that makes sense, because that's the way we should be in this community. Because I feel like a lot of people don't do that with artists and don't allow that opportunity for them to grow and get the constructive feedback that they may not get from the industry by doing that.
Right. And I'll give you an example of like an artist that you'd be like, damn, for real, like Pitt was one of those people at first that I wasn't, like lyrically and the zone I was in hip hop wise at the time, and what I wanted Miami to sound like, and even more specifically dialed into, like, I had my own artist that he was Cuban and he was hella lyrical, and then Pitt's Cuban, so it felt like, you know, there wasn't enough room for 2 Cubans coming out of Miami at the time, you know,
Right.
which was silly. But
Right.
you know, at first I was like, man, Pitt's not exactly at the lyrical level that I would want an artist to come out and represent Miami right now. At that early, I'm talking about early Pitt though.
Right.
Yeah.
And at first I was like hesitant, but then like, you know, he taught me a valuable lesson, man. He hustled, he grinded, he killed with kindness. He was relentless. You know, I have probably he gave me freestyles for every mixtape, regardless whether it never came out. He supplied for the next one, regardless again if it never came out. I have probably like 2 or 3 albums worth of freestyles from Pitt.
That's pretty dope. When you say Pitt, we're mentioning Pitbull, right? You know, Pitbull.
Yeah, Pitbull. Sorry. Yeah, man. And you know, and again, you know, when I finally, and you know, I was still early Pitt, but I finally, you know, I was like, why would I get in the way of this dude that's grinding hard? He's repping the crib. He you know, he's relentless, and he's always coming with respect, humility. You know, like he's a good dude, and that's why, like at one point I was like, nah, I gotta support this. Like, there's no way I'm not gonna support this.
That's major. And see, that's what I respect about how you do your business is you do look out for other people. You do try to see how it can be beneficial for everyone, and you're not closed off and like, hey, only my crew, only the people I'm already rocking with. You give other people opportunities. And in that case, you know, it actually helped both of you guys because Pitbull went on to be Mr. International, doing all his big things. And then plus you know, you already were doing your thing. And then that's just another alley-oop, like how when Nori and you got together as well.
And I mean, look, if you look at it the way it is, man, like it just makes so much sense. It's such a cycle. Like at that lower level time, I'm the mixtape DJ. I'm the guy. I'm kind of like the gatekeeper, sort of say. And Pitt is just an artist trying to get in. And, you know, I'm one of those people that he kind of needs to like make sure he gets on my radar, gets on my mixtape so that he could kind of move to the next level. And then boom, I do it. And then, you know, then fast forward a little bit, then he's rocking, he's killing it. But I'm, you know, he's just coming out, but he's starting to kill it. And I'm still doing my thing. But then at one point, he goes out of the world. And he could have just never turned back. And then that relationship, we maintained it all these years. And if you see, like, if you look at the Drink Champs episode with him, you see that level of respect and admiration for one another. It never changed, and it doesn't change because someone is, you know, went out of here. And then now I'm doing Drink Champs, and he's a worldwide phenomenon. So it's just like, it's such a cycle, and that's why you got to be careful of how you treat
people.
You know what I'm saying? Never look at anybody like they're beneath you, less than you, because and not, well, if you want to do it for selfish reasons, by all means, at least do it for a reason. Be kind for, even if it's for selfish reasons, but it shouldn't be selfish. You should just understand that we're all really equal. We're just in different times of our path, you know?
Which is interesting. I think it's the upbringing. I mean, bro, like when I touch down and whenever I come home, I just get like, I'll stop and I'll take it in because like I love like just the atmosphere, the landscape, how everything looks from Orlando to Miami. Like I love all of that. And I think it's the upbringing, especially in Miami, because what a lot of people don't really understand about the lingo, all these new slang words and these little funny little tags and stuff, a lot of that come from the crib. So, and it's a respectful thing. I think we endure a lot of respect in Miami, like especially amongst our elders and our friends and things like that. So like it makes sense for Pitt to when he was on the come up and he took off and he became the guy, and then you're right behind him, even though you was there in the beginning, you started it, and then now everybody's at equal. Like and then I watched the episode when Pitt was on there and y'all talked and stuff, and it was just, I felt like I was watching two cousins having a conversation about, they was reminiscing about stuff back in the old days. Yeah. And that's lit, bro. Like, and that's what I mean. That's why I have so much respect, dude, for you, bro. Like everything that you've done, the things that you are doing, you inspire me. That's why I have a podcast, brother. Like I brought one of my good friends to join in with me, and I was like, bro, I don't know what to do with all of this stuff. What do I do? Right. Let's do this right here. So now I'm sharing my situation with my bro right here, and vice versa. And watching what you've done and what you've become and what you've contributed to the world and to hip hop, it's like it's a phenomenal thing, brother. Like, it's super phenomenal. And like, I take a lot of cues from you. And also, I had to, it took me a minute to like really sit down and to absorb the fact that the song, like we have this song that I'm about to, and I gotta take my time with it, because these are moments that you don't get these moments every single day. Just because you know a person and you cool with them, it doesn't mean anything. It has to make sense. And I'm making everything make sense. I'm doing it the best possible way I possibly can. And again, brother, like, I appreciate you and I'm proud of you. I'm happy for the whole crew, all the Crazy Hoods, Drink Champs, all of that, brother. Like, and I'm always going to be the #1 supporter for everything that y'all do, man. Always. Yes, sir.
Respect all day. And so I wanted to jump into that, because now that you mentioned Drink Champs, what inspired you to co-create Drink Champs? And what would you say is your most memorable moment or something that stood out to you while you were recording an episode of the Drink Champs podcast?
The inspiration is years in the making, in the sense that Nori moved down to Miami. I'm going to try to condense a very long story, because Drink Champs, it took a while for it to manifest itself, but it was like you could kind of pinpoint where it started. And so Nori moves to Miami. He moves to this area that we're in Kendall. And he had just done the reggaeton stuff that he was doing, and I wasn't a big reggaeton fan at all at the time. Yeah, I wasn't. So he knew I was like a diehard hip hop head, and so when he moved down, he's like, "All right, E, bring me back to hip hop," basically. So I had him working out of my studio. You know, the studio was open to him 24/7. I connected him with my homie Hazardous Sounds, who's a producer engineer. We had him cranking out music, and in those sessions, you know, he was basically, you know, he was Crazy Hood. He was already Crazy Hood in our head, but he was an extension, so he was immersed in Crazy Hood at the time. And so in those studio sessions, and in that time, it was a warehouse office that we had that was a studio. We were drinking, gambling, you know, all kinds of chaos was happening in that studio. You know, young men just you know, wilding out and stuff. And so in my crew, if you couldn't handle your liquor, we would say, you know, you're not a drink champ.
Okay.
Like, you ain't a drink champ. You know? I'm a drink champ. You're not a drink champ. And we would say that was like a thing. That was a thing that we would just say all the time. There's probably, as far back as social media kind of started, like Instagram and stuff, there's probably a hashtag where me and my friends just hashtag drink champ.
Okay.
And so I thought that was a dope like term. And I'm like, I wonder if anybody owns that on the .com side. So I went and bought drinkchamp.com and drinkchamps.com. Even though we were using the singular version, I said, let me buy the plural version just in case, because this could be a bar, this could be a clothing line. I don't know what it could be. I was on one of those like buying up all the .coms. Anything I thought of, you know, I have a million .coms, right? And so I bought the .com. I even grabbed, I think Instagram had just popped off. I got the Instagram, I got the Twitter at the time. And so that happens, right? So that's one side of the story. The other side is Nori and I get approached by a homie, Leo G, who was at XM Radio at the time, before it was Sirius XM. And he offered us a radio show, a weekly radio show that we could pre-record at my studio here, which was kind of unheard of at the time at XM. Everybody had to be in their studios, which was in DC at the time. And he's like, look, man, I'll let you guys pre-record it. You send it in and you'll have a weekly show. And we're like, all right, cool. So we did that out of my studio. And that show was kind of like the precursor in terms of like me and Nori getting to understand each other as co-hosts. And if there's some old footage of that show on YouTube, which is a little crazy, but we intro in here. We intro the show the same way we intro Drink Champs. Like, yo, I'm Noreaga, I'm DJ EFN. The name was Militant and Crazy Raw Radio, which Nori came up with. He's like, this is Militant and Crazy Raw Radio, make some noise, blah, 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 blah. The whole shit. And we're drinking, and it just had less guests, because at the time there wasn't a lot of guests that were going to come all the way down South Miami, Kendall, where we were at. But we had a couple guests. I think Fat Joe came through. A couple people came through to that. So we're doing that. The name is over here. Those things don't collide yet.
Yeah.
The name, I don't even know what it's going to be. And then we did that. We did that on XM. We did it on Sirius XM when they merged. We were on different channels. We were on what was Leo G's channel? Raw. It was 66 Raw on XM. Then we were on Hip Hop Nation. Then we were on Backspin. And then I think we were on another station. And we did that show for like 3 years. We didn't make a dime. We did it for fun. It was just us with our homies. We had a homie, my homie DJ, and we had a mix show in it. And we were just shooting the shit every week. We stopped doing that. Nori goes on tour with Pone. They put out a CNN album with Capone. They go to Europe. I start managing my homies called Mayday. It's a group out of Miami. They get signed to Tech Nine's record label, Strange Music.
Okay.
We go on tour. We stopped doing that. Another homie of mine locally named Godfrey, he's in the Podcast Hall of Fame. He has a gaming podcast, it's like a gaming hip hop podcast called Gamer Tag Radio. Okay. And he has been in the podcast realm when it was internet radio, because that's where really it stems from, internet radio, and then it turns into podcasting. So he was always telling me like, "Yo, that thing you used to do with Nora, you guys should turn that into a podcast." And he kept drilling that at me. "Yo, you should do a podcast. You do a podcast." And then I started thinking, well, what sucked about that other show is that we had to do it at a certain length. We had to turn in a certain time. Like there was all these stipulations and things, criteria dealing with Sirius XM. But with podcasting, he's like, you can do whatever you want. You can do a 10-minute podcast, you can 30-minute, 5-hour, you don't, whatever. You could put it out whenever you want. I was like, man, that freedom is dope. So I started telling Nori about doing it, and he didn't know what a podcast was.
Right.
So he was like, I don't know. And it was really relatively new at least within the hip hop realm. People wasn't really fucking with podcasts. And if they knew about podcasts, they thought it was like some nerd computer shit.
Right.
So it took me a while to convince Nori. And while I'm trying to convince Nori, he's actually getting approached by rest in peace to Combat Jack and the company that he was with. They reached out to Nori and they were like, yo, that thing you used to do the same way my homie told me. They were telling that thing you used to do at EFN, you should make that a podcast. So they actually offer us a deal to distribute a podcast. And long story short, it didn't work out. We didn't do it. They sent me equipment and then Nori wasn't ready. So I had to send the equipment back. I'm like, Nori's not ready yet. Finally, years pass by. My boy Godfrey comes back again. He has a deal with his podcast with CBS Radio. He says, what do you guys want to try? You want me to introduce you? I tell Nori. Nori's like, man, CBS Radio sounds pretty big. So they said, all right, do a pilot episode of your podcast. Like they didn't say, yeah, we're gonna sign you. Now we want to hear what you're gonna do. So we did 2 episodes. Kenny Anderson was the first one we recorded, the basketball player.
Yeah.
Fat Joe was the second one we recorded the next day. We ended up releasing Fat Joe first.
Right.
So we sent those demos in. They loved it. And then they signed a deal with us. And then when Nori, at that same moment that we're about to do this, we're talking about what are we going to call it. And I already had my homeboy Scam, who's a legendary artist. He did the Eminem album covers, the Pill, all that stuff. He did the Tribe Called Quest Beats Rhyme and Life album cover. He's done legendary artwork for a lot of people. I'm just naming the 2 most notable, but a lot of legendary stuff. And he's done a lot of artwork for me and my crew that I had him do the Drink Champs logo.
Okay.
And so when we're about to go, Nori's one of these people that when he's ready, he's impatient. He's like, let's go. And like, what are we gonna call it? I said, yo, Drink Champs. At first he was like, I don't know. And I was like, nah, man, I got the logo, I got the .com, let's go. He's like, all right, Drink Champs, let's go. Boom, boom. And then there you go. Drink Champs was born.
That's very cool. That's dope. I like how you guys kind of mashed it together. It took multiple times to get it right. But once it finally got right, everything started to come together for you guys. So
yeah, for sure. Just so you know, your mic sounds a little muffled right now.
I got you. I think it slid down a little bit. All right, is that better?
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, that's cool how you guys came up with the whole thing. So what would you say is one of the best episodes or artists that appeared on there? What would you say is one of the memorable times that you had? Like, I know you guys have had Takeoff, you've had Kanye on there. Is there anything that you could tell us about any of those episodes that kind of stood out to you, or which one you kind of had a memory that stuck out?
I mean, to those specific, obviously, like Takeoff, rest in peace.
Takeoff.
What was cool about him is that, our podcast, people kind of knows for having like more like 90s centric artists for the most part,
Right.
I mean, we've gone outside of that plenty of times, but that's what we're known for. So it's refreshing when we have artists like Migos type, them two. I mean, it wasn't all 3 of them, but for them to come, and Takeoff was actually, which I didn't know this until he got there, a huge fan of Drink Champs.
Okay.
And he was showing it. Like the way me and Nori even interacted, he was like, yo, I watch you guys do this, and now I'm watching it like in person. Like he was like genuinely hyped to
Definitely.
be in person at Drink Champs. And that was a, you know, I walked away saying, man, that was really dope, you know, because I didn't, you know, I wasn't, obviously I've played the music, there's songs that I like, but I wasn't a big Migos person, you know, like never really was. Not to take away anything from their music, but I just never was. So to see that he came in there and I didn't know what to expect, and he was super like hyped to be there. I was like, man, that actually made me a fan, you know, just how hyped he was and how humble he was. He was super humble. So it's super tragic what happened. It's tragic for hip hop in general.
And I feel like he was at his peak at that time, because that's when Takeoff was giving us his prime bars. He was coming out his shell, really just putting everything on display, because, you know, everybody would be like, oh, he got left off Bad and Bougie, that whole controversy with Joe Buttons and stuff. But this guy really can spit. And that's the thing where I was like, man, he's coming into his own. He's popping out now, because now that the group has got the name, Takeoff's getting the time to be able to show himself. And it sucks that they, you know, took him from us at that time, right when we were getting a lot of the good stuff that he was putting together. So
yeah, absolutely, man. I mean, it was really, really tragic, man. We've had, you know, when you have a show like ours we're about to celebrate 8 years.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And it's a weekly show, so you know it's a lot of guests that we have on the show. It's unfortunate that you start to, you know, see people pass that you've had on the show.
Yeah.
And like with Gangsta Boo, that was another amazing guest that we had. And you know, I'm really, really happy that we were able to pull it off, because I think I had talked to her. I had met her at South by Southwest a few years before she came on the show, and she was just so sweet and so nice. And I told her, yeah, I would love for you to, you know, you're a legend. I want you to be on the show. And we stayed in communication. And there was times where she was like, well, you guys don't really want me on the show, you know? Nah, you know, there's like a, you know, because schedules weren't working out and stuff like that. And then sometimes she was like, are you sure? I don't know if I'd do good on the show. Like she was a little self-conscious about coming on the show. And then finally we made it happen, and it was beautiful. And she had fun. Like my main thing for the guests is that we don't do interviews. Like we're not journalists. We've said this before. And now I see Shannon Sharp is going, like having to say that his interview with Cat Williams, but we're not. We really want to celebrate the artists, just have conversation about their careers, their legacy, and celebrate hip hop as a whole, and celebrate the culture, and just be happy that we're all here. And,
absolutely.
And I'm glad that with Gangsta Boo, like she had fun, and that's to me is important. She had fun sitting down with us, and afterwards she told me, you know, she thanked me a lot, and it's just again another unfortunate, terrible situation and a huge loss for hip hop.
Absolutely.
And,
yeah, you know, she's one of the strongest female artists that we had, you know, and it's just crazy that stuff keeps happening to people that we're looking towards and wanting to hear from. And it's like usually right after they do something that kind of gets their name brought up, then something happens to where, you know, now we really miss those people.
Dude, so, she was gearing up for her confidence was back, and she was gearing up to do so much. And there was a lot that we're missing out a lot with her loss. The same thing with DMX, another one that you know, we have to attribute the early success of Drink Champs to his episode, which was not his best moments for himself. But was, you know, it really was a genuine situation that you got to see.
He don't do podcasts. He don't do interviews.
I don't do radio.
What the fuck is a podcast? Dark man.
I don't do radio.
Yo. Hold on, no. Clap your fucking hands. 1, 2, 3, Yo, Dark Man X, man, thank you for being here, man. We know you don't do interviews,
X,
thank you,
man. Thank you, brother.
Let's get straight to the point, man.
It's an honor and a blessing. First, let me say that. How I fuck with this kid. How I fuck with my man right here.
Thank you.
N-O-R-E.
Thank you.
Now we on the run in.
That's right.
And I was able to better understand how my music could influence people to the point where they will tell me that a song might have saved their life because one of his songs saved mine.
Thank you, man.
Saved mine.
For that first episode, if anybody that hasn't seen it, you can watch it. You know, you might look at it and it might be a little cringeworthy because X just is in, you know, he's in a mode. And to have him on the episode the one that, you know, prior to him passing, he was just in such a good space, and it was so refreshing. And he was just, I'm telling you, it was such a pleasure to sit with him, and he was just laughing and joking and having fun. And yeah, that's another one, man, that just really hurt to see him pass, you know?
Definitely. And that's my thing with that too, is like, I saw that he was getting his stuff together from you guys' show. And then also when he did the verses, and I could see that he was starting to get his mojo back. Cause I always liked him as an actor too. A lot of people, you know, Cradle to the Grave and the different movies that he's done. Like, I like DMX as an actor. Him and Pac were two of the best rap artists that actually were acting that I like to watch. And I was like, oh man, where's DMX? Where's DMX? Why is he not, you know, doing more movies? And then I found out he was facing his struggles. But the thing that I always liked is he always kept himself humble. He was always, you know, talking about God, things like that. So as I saw him getting himself right, I was like, cool, he's getting ready to come back, do some stuff. Perfect. This is going to be good because, you know, he's coming back out, him and Swiss connecting again, things like that. I was like, this is going to be good.
Yeah. Let me tell you something that I don't know this for a fact. I speculate this with X because just like how I told you, Nori, you know, didn't know much about what podcasting was, and a lot of the hip hop universe didn't really understand and grasp a podcast or even care to be a part of it, you know?
Right.
When we had X on that first episode, he really didn't know what a podcast was. And I can't get into it because it'll take up too much time. But that episode, a documentary could be made about the making of that one episode. That's how wild. I would say it was about a 8-hour span of time that it took for that to manifest itself while we were trying to do it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So to say all that, he didn't know what it was. And he was, you know, like I said, in a certain mode, but he did a prayer on that episode, right?
Yes.
And that prayer went viral.
Can you pray for the people?
Father God, we thank you for this gathering of souls. The word says that when two or more gather in your name at your presence, we thank you for your presence. We ask that your grace and blessings are upon us this evening. We pray that any obstacle the devil plans to place on our path be removed in the name of Jesus.
Like, people, to this day, they still post that prayer. And the next time we saw him was during, we were doing these quarantine episodes, you know, when we were all on quarantine, we were doing the conference call ones, the video calls, and he was on there. And we didn't get to talk much because it was a couple people on that one episode, but I could tell that he kind of like understood now, like, you know, what he definitely understood what a podcast was at that point. And then I kind of feel and speculate that because he was such a man of God, he really was. He really appreciated that prayer went viral.
Right.
And he's like, oh, is this the power of these platforms that's something like that he tries to get across? You know, he does it at all his shows, you know, something that it could go like, I don't know this for a fact, but I just felt like that shifted his idea of what these platforms do and him being open to doing them more.
Then that makes sense. Yeah. Because when you get information like that, or you see that people are giving you good feedback, it does enlighten you on things that you normally would be, you know, closed-minded to and things like that. Right. And, you know, definitely RIP DMX. And we look, you know, forward to still celebrating his life in the future and the things that he's done. With the Kanye episode, I know that one was one that kind of took off pretty well for you guys and had a lot, you know, going on and a lot of nuggets. He was talking about buying houses, property, you know, all the things that he does. And some people tend to think, you know, Kanye's out there sometimes, but Kanye's a very smart individual. What would you say are like some of the nuggets that you picked up on in that episode?
Well, remember, we had 2 episodes.
Yes.
Right. I can't remember the nuggets from them. I know there was a lot. But all I could say about Kanye is he behind the scenes, he was a pleasure to deal with. He was humble. He greeted every single person in the room when he got there. He was just really nice. And you know, when the cameras turned on, he became more of the Kanye that we know. But it didn't faze me, and you know, he was just a pleasure to deal with. Again, it was like another, like almost like the you know, unfortunately the last time we got to sit with DMX. Everybody has these ideas of Kanye, and good or bad, but my experience is like dealing with the person, and I kind of take more away from how they act behind the scenes instead of in front of the cameras. And Kanye was just mad cool, man, and a pleasure to deal with. And a lot of stuff was said on both episodes, obviously.
Right.
You know, and it's kind of crazy because the first episode is kind of like redeemed him, where people had lost a little faith in him, and then they the first episode kind of humanized him again and kind of like brought him. I mean, I don't want to put that much on our show, but I felt like it helped. It helped his image in hip hop at least. And the second one, obviously, not so much.
Right.
There was a lot of controversy with it, but you know, he definitely, you know, you can't take away anything he's done in music and hip hop. And but at the end of the day, man, I think none of us should be idolizing anybody and putting anybody on a pedestal and taking any, you know, we shouldn't take what they say and implement it in our lives just because they say it.
Right.
And so, you know, just take that with a grain of salt. At the end of the day, these are musicians, these are humans, these are artists. They could be genius in a niche specific thing. Doesn't mean that they're genius for everything.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, that makes sense too.
And,
So,
for the artist, sorry, but for the artist, because I think that's a terrible pressure to put on an artist who is a flawed human like the next person, but they're really passionate about their art, and we're trying to put the world on them and be like, nah, we want you to dictate and tell us what we should think about everything, you know?
well, I feel like he kind of brought that on himself when he started going around saying, I'm the Louis Vuitton Don, I'm a god, you know, I'm these things. And when he did the whole Taylor Swift thing, that he kind of drew that drama in, and then a lot of people took a long time to forgive him for that. And then I did see on that Drink Chaps episode, because I was reading through the comments as well, that the first episode, a lot of people were over there like, oh, Kanye's back. Oh, I didn't know he was like this. Let me go start looking at his career. Let me do this. So a lot of people were regaining that hope in him, and, you know, that he was back. But I also feel with Donda passing away, R.I.P. Donda, that she, you know, took a lot of his, you know, I don't want to say sanity, but some of his focus off of the things that were more important, and kind of put him into different, you know, categories and things that he was thinking.
I mean, I think I feel like what a loss like that, and she was such an instrument in his life.
Right.
It changed him. I'm not gonna ever call the man. What I won't do is this. I don't know him. I'm not gonna disrespect him. I'm not gonna call him all these terrible names. But I will say, he's brilliant when it comes to what he's producing and what we like and what we enjoy. And there's also things that we don't understand about him. We don't know him. We don't know what's going on in his mind. All I can do as a person on the outside looking in, as a fan of hip hop, music, the culture, all of that, is to just absorb and enjoy.
Right.
It's not my place to intervene. It's not my place to try to change or anything. I can give some advice or let you know I care. That's the best that I can possibly do. But as far as all of that other stuff, you know, we don't know. We don't know what's going on with him. We don't know we didn't know what was going on with Michael Jackson. We didn't know what was going on with Prince. We don't know what's going on with any of these people that are on a beautiful platform, or they're of the upper echelon, if you will. Like, we don't know. All we can do is just sit down, stand back, and enjoy what they produce. That's it. You know. So, and I had to learn that, because, you know, as I ain't gonna hold you, like, you know, stepping into this in this business, you kind of got to watch what you say. You got to watch what you do. You got to watch how you move. And that's real, because once you get to a certain point in your life or your career, a lot of that stuff is gonna come back, man. Like, and then when the internet is forever, you know what I mean? So, and I love a lot of your quotes, especially when you tell the masses to not put these people on pedestals. You know, not treat your friends with this. You treat your friends with the same respect that you treat a celebrity that you don't even know. Like, keep it balanced, keep it nice and even, you know. So
and you know, I'm not a super religious person, but that whole thing, I always love that one quote of in the Bible, like, I'm gonna misquote the shit out of it.
You can paraphrase it.
Like, let the person who hasn't sinned throw the first rock, and then nobody could throw the rock, you know.
Right.
I think it was the stone lady. And I just think we live in a crazy world where everybody feels that they're a platform and wants to spew out, you know, their own opinion, and that's fine. But, you know, it's you're probably dissing somebody for the very things that you yourself have done in the past or at presently. Nobody knows you. You're lesser known, and you know, And I'm not saying anything is right that anybody's doing. I'm just saying, look, let's just all take a step back. You know what I'm saying? Let's just fucking stop talking shit. You know, like,
just big, like
the same shit could be talked about you.
Well, big,
and they will find it. That's
big,
the craziness. As your platform gets bigger, they're gonna find the stuff that you're doing.
Let's just big each other up and just have some love and respect, dude. Like that's it. Like, bro, like the love at the museum of graffiti, right? That was so dope. Like to see all those people from different parts of the world or the country, and then in Miami, and then to see Wynwood, like, oh my gosh, brother, like that was so great, man. And congrats to you, man, for the key and everything, man. That is amazing.
Yes, definitely shout out for the key to the city.
That was brilliant, man. And to see the Southwest, my brother, like it got that look, bro. Like, you know what I mean? It's getting that look, and that's amazing, man. But yeah, bro, I love how the fact that you brought your whole crew, you brought the whole team, everybody eating, bro, everybody. Then you have a whole nother situation where everybody's able to benefit from the situation, and that's for me personally, that's what it's about, So
to be all the way transparent, because I got a big crew, the goal is for everybody to eat off the situation, but you only lead the horse to the water. My goal. My way of doing things is allow everybody the opportunity to do whatever they want, utilizing what we're doing as a brand. I can't say, I'm sure there's dudes in the crew they're like, I ain't eating yet. God damn it, man. I want to eat some more. I want to be transparent about that. And then just to be also very specific, we got the keys to Miami-Dade County, because the keys to the city is a little something else. There's keys to the city. We got the keys to the county, and we got the first ever key to West Kendall, specific area that we live in. So
yes, sir.
No, and that's still good, regardless. What it is. It's still an accolade that you guys accomplished.
No. 100. Listen, if you would have asked me as a teenager, starting Crazy Hood Productions with with my crew, a bunch of wild teenagers, that in the future,
Latinos like the party, so I know how y'all get down.
You would have told me then that in the future that the officials of the the governance of Miami were going to actually give us a proclamation, making it Crazy Hood Day and giving us keys, I would have said, get the fuck out of here.
Right? That's the shit, right?
Think about it, like even when it happened, my wife was like, I don't think they're going to give Crazy Hood anything. Not that she didn't think that we were deserving of it. No. She just couldn't see the government, the local government saying, Crazy Hood, put it on paper, put it on a key. Right.
And that's cool, though. We definitely got to get out there and experience one of the Crazy Hood days with you guys, because I love Miami. I've only been out there once, but I fell in love with Wynwood a lot because I like how it's kind of everybody in the streets moving around, having tacos, going to the little bars, bouncing around. They pulled out the quads and start bumping music after the club shut down. I was loving the experience over there. So the Art District, Wynwood, is somewhere that I like a lot. And at Miami South Beach, I'm big on water. So I was down there at 11 p.m., 12 o'clock at night, laying in the ocean, back floating and things like that. So it was definitely dope experience.
Yeah, man. I mean, Wynwood's changed a lot. I would say if you want to experience it, come as soon as you can, because I feel like it's changing in a way that it won't be the same. It's not the same Wynwood at all from the Wynwood I experienced back in the days, which is fine, because back in the days it was the hood. You know what I'm saying? Right. But it's really changed where it's become very touristy, but it's still a very dope art district. I would just say, if you like it, come keep experiencing, because it might not be the same, come 3, 4, 5 years from now.
Okay. I'll definitely have to stomp back out there, pop through, see when you're free, check in on you, things like that too. Yeah. So another question I wanted to ask you, over the time that you've been in the hip hop industry, how have you seen the industry changing, and what do you think is going to change going forward in the hip hop industry?
A lot has changed. Hip hop and industry in general, entertainment industry, but all industry is very cyclical. It's a cycle. And if you can identify the cycle and when things are going to, change, you'll be better off. But what happens is that I think that, and I'm going to kind of veer off a little bit from directly answering the question to kind of more advice to people. It's changed, but everything changes. So what happens is people will be like from a certain generation or certain time frame, they come in the game, and then they see things change and they resist the change and they get mad and then they get grumpy and they're like, they ain't the same the way it used to be.
Right.
what I would say now, and this is the most significant change in industry in general, but specific to entertainment and music and hip hop, the internet changed everything. It democratized a lot of things.
Yeah.
It also hid where we think things are independent, but the powers that be also grabbed in there and scooped in, and they're controlling a lot of things too. The algorithm, we don't know how that works. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah. It's constantly changing.
But what's cool about today versus in the past is that when something changed and the gatekeepers controlled it, you just could be mad and you couldn't do much about it. But now you can create your own lane. You can use all these tools online. You can use all these social media platforms, albeit understanding we're not completely independent because we're at the behest of these tech companies and the powers that be. But still, it's a lot more than what it was before. You could touch, put yourself in front of a lot more people for a lot lower cost nowadays. And don't be mad at things changing. Just do what you do. And if you don't like what you see out there, then create it.
Right.
Create it and find your audience.
Yeah.
And I think we're in an era where you don't have to be a celebrity. Let me take that back. Celebrity is one thing. You don't have to be a superstar anymore.
Right.
Before, to make it, you had to be like, you had to go platinum. You had to be a superstar. And if you didn't, you were considered a failure. Even if you went gold,
right.
And if you didn't go gold, if you only sold a couple 100,000 records, then
you went wood.
You're back. Now, if you sell a couple 100,000 records now, you know what I'm saying? You made it, you're big, you're making real money. And if you're independent, you know what I'm saying? Like if you're independent, you could do a lot. And if you're independent and you sell a couple 100,000 records or you get a certain amount of traction on social media, then you'll have these major corporations wanting to do deals with you if you want to do those deals. It's just the changes is the obvious. The internet has changed everything. The internet, and sort of say with the blockchain and all this stuff, it continues to change everything because AI is changing everything.
Right.
And people they keep getting grumpier and grumpier about the change. Whether it's a change in the sound, whether it's a change in this, like, listen, if you don't like something, rather than complain, create.
Do something about it. Yeah, do something about it.
If you're not a creator, if you're not, the other thing that I think that has always sucked, especially since social media really hit, is that fans aren't fans anymore. Fans are just wannabe creators. They're just a fan until they're like, oh, I'm gonna do better. I can do this, or they're gonna like. There's no more fans. I feel like the fans have left the building. You know what I'm saying? Like real fans, and so that's a problem. That's a problem because we live in a world where we've empowered every fan now to think that they're a creator, which I don't know if that's good or bad. I'm just telling you what I see. You know what I'm saying?
Can I jump into that?
Yeah.
You ain't gotta ask. Go
ahead. No, I mean, I gotta put this. So, as you know, I do shows, right? Shout out to Shotty. Shout out to my man Shotty. I do shows.
Yeah.
And I perform. I do, and then I'm starting to get a lot of the bigger. I'm doing festivals and like conventions now. So like I've been going. I think that's the way. I think that's the way to go. But anyways, I do shows here. I have one that's coming up, and a couple. And what I've noticed, you're performing for other rappers. Like, what? You know what I'm saying? Like the whole idea when we're going out to go do these shows and performances and you building a buzz and get your name out and everything is to kind of captivate new fans and new people that you don't know. Like I prefer to do stuff for folks that I don't know so they can see what I'm showcasing and what I'm doing, because it's always that I could do that better than him. I could do that, blah, blah, blah. It's always, and then everybody has booking information. Everybody, it's like if you hadn't proven that you are, I don't want to use the word worthy, but you're like, you understand the lane or whatever business that you're trying to step into, you don't deserve to have any booking anything, especially when you're not doing anything. Because think about it. We have all these yahoos that'll just go out. I hate the word yahoos. Wow. We have all these people out here that'll just do one random ass thing and they out of there. Versus a person that's been grinding and working for 20 years that can't even get a look. So then they got to shift and do something different to get that specific look to fuel the thing that they were trying to get off in the first place. And me personally, I know life isn't fair, but like that whole thing, that whole idea to me personally it's just not fair, man. Like,
well,
you got to go break.
Sorry, go ahead. Finish your thought, because
I'm just saying, like, it just goes back to what you were saying. Like, there aren't any fans of anything anymore. Nobody wants to be a fan of an EFN or a fan of an ATO or a K Good or no. Everybody wants to outdo somebody. Like, I could do it better than you. Like, that's so aggravating, bro.
I want to rephrase it though, because there are fans. I want to rephrase it. The loudest voices that we're usually exposed to are the wannabe creators that are surfing the platforms, that are in our networks, that are in and around us. They are usually the want to be creators. So they're not fans.
Mm-hmm.
So they'll be in and around. They might act like a fan at one moment, because but they're all want to be creators. But the truth is, the real fans, they don't have time to sit there and be commenting every day and surfing on the web. They don't have time. They don't have time to go, unfortunately, to all the showcases. You know what I'm saying? So they have to wait till your stuff is available, in a mass level where they get exposed to it, and then or they discover it somehow, and then they become a fan. But they're like the quiet fans, like real fans. They're not out there like commenting all the time in the beginning, at least. Obviously when you get these rabid fans, like for a Beyonce, that's a whole different level. You know what I'm saying? I said, because I've seen it with Tech 9. You go on the road and the technician, like, it's crazy, bro. Like, they're there.
Biggest independent artist there is.
Right. Warehouse in Kansas City.
But there's this purgatory. There's this purgatory for a lot of people, where the loudest voices are just wannabe creators, and it sucks to be in that realm. And in that, there's no fans. Like, that's where it feels like there's no fans, but they're out there. Well, they're there.
I agree with you on that, because what I would say is, now I love the internet. I'm glad it's here. I love that it's easier for us to get things out to people in our platform. But I feel like, to your point, a lot of people do want to be creators or be seen. So they're looking for their viral moment. And if it's at your expense, they're happy to take it at your expense, whether it's at your show or whatever, and they throw something on stage or whatever. People are doing anything they can to get their moment of time based off of your shine, whether they're a fan or not. It's like, oh, he's on stage, let me rush the stage and go interrupt this concert.
But that's
disgusting.
Then
they get taken off. You know what I mean? And I appreciate you saying that. And that's basically what I was trying to get to, because like, that's gross, man. Like, that's not the way to do it, man. I mean, if it was an accident, cool. Yeah, okay, it was an accident. That's but don't intentionally throw a damn shoe at somebody or try to attack somebody. Like, that stuff is crazy, brother.
Yeah,
like,
I mean, we'll go down a rabbit hole right now, trying to pick apart the psychology behind everything going on, how social media has changed everybody. You know,
sure.
Like, that's a whole other podcast.
We'll definitely run it back.
It has made everybody feel entitled when it comes to dealing with artists and stuff like that. And yeah, that's a whole other thing, man. Like, right now, like, because as we're talking, like, I have all these ideas and different things, but I'm like, this is too much into right now.
No, but I did want to ask you, what is your perspective on the Cat Williams interview in the Club Shay Shay? Because that has been going viral, and he let out a lot of good, information. Some of it true, some of it, might be fictitious, but a lot of people felt like they had to respond to it. Like, everybody came out and put their response behind what he said based on the things. Yeah, because it seemed like some of it was true. I felt like a lot of stuff was lining up, and even Cube backed the stuff about Friday After Next with Ricky Smiley. So what do you think as far as that interview and how things went on?
I mean, look, I just hats off to Shannon Sharp for having a dope ass, breakout episode 2024. Like,
definitely,
it was amazing. I would have loved to have had Cat Williams on Drink Champs, and not for the controversy. Me personally, I can't speak for Nori. I'm not into the controversy crap. You know what I'm saying?
Me either.
I'm not into it, man. I'd rather get into the meat and potatoes of how you got to where you got, so that the audience could understand the grind. That's me.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That's how I am. So I could do without the controversy, but I'm also a consumer. And as a consumer, man, that episode was hella entertaining. Like,
for sure.
And Cat is such a he's he has such a knack for linguistics, man. Like the way that he talks, like, you know, it's
You would
captivating.
think he was a real pimp because he just spits it.
Bruh, he might tell you something that, you know, might not be true at all, but you're like, I don't know. I think it's true the way he said it. I don't know. You just don't know. Like, you almost take everything he said, like it's got to be true. The way he said it he said it with his chest out, you know?
Right, he flows it.
Yeah. I
He's
mean,
one
look,
of my favorite comedians.
I saw his tour recently when he came to Miami, and it was
Right.
genius. Cat Williams is, you know, one of the top comedians, you know, out there. He's, you know, one of the
Absolutely. He's one of my favorites.
Regardless of what he would have said, it would have been a dope episode.
For sure.
And if you watch the Willie D one's dope too, the one he's on with Willie D.
I just watched that one earlier.
Yeah, I watched it last night. And me personally, I don't watch a lot of long form content. Believe it or not, I don't watch Drink Champs. I lived it. So for me to sit there and watch it and for it to captivate me for that long, at least from my perspective, it was really good. So I just, you know, hats off to both of them. You know, I think it's really dope for Cat and his tour and the people, you know, touring. Now, on the flip, you know, I'd hope everything he says is real, and if it's not, you know, it's kind of crazy. You know, you feel for anybody. Like I saw who came out and talked about it. I think it was Ricky Smiley, where he said that you know, that his kids were hurt by it. And you know, like, you know, I got family, I got kids, you know, then you start to say, damn, you know, but I don't know, you know, if it's true, you just, we don't, again, that's where you got to take the stance as let's just say a fan or a consumer, rather than put all your 2 cents and opinion into it. Just be entertained and say, I don't know, I wasn't there, so I can't tell you how true all of it is, but I'll take it for face value and I'll be entertained by it, and, you know, and watch everybody respond to it, and that's all you can do. But to put your, like, a lot of like consumers, they'll put their emotion in it, and then they'll start hating the person he mentioned, and or hating, like come on, man, you're doing too much. You're doing too much. You know?
Yeah, and I agree with you on all of that. I'm the same kind of way. Like, I take it in, and then I look at the facts and see how things come out, and I look at both sides. So with the situations, you know, you saw certain sides of it, with Ricky Smiley basically saying that he was wrong, but not really, you know, telling all the ins and outs. He was like, okay, yes, you know, I interviewed, I didn't have the part, but I was close to getting the part. And then now, you know, Cat Williams did it way better than I would have ever done it. So we hear things that line up with what Cat's saying, like, okay, this was his part. Ricky Smiley misquoted how he said it, but he did audition for the part to try and get it. But yeah, I'm curious to see when Steve Harvey steps on the scene, what he has to say, because pretty much everybody else responded, but we haven't heard Steve's take on it yet.
Right.
Cool. And then wanted to ask you, can you name a few artists or albums that influenced you personally to, you know, just get you through your life, or things that you kind of took on and personified or something like that, you know, was of relevance to you?
Yeah, I mean, to the 2 pivotal hip hop groups for me that really like inspired me were NWA and Public Enemy.
Okay.
And I was having a convo on DM with someone the other day, and I don't know, we were talking about NWA, and I was explaining how, like, I think those groups are such a strong example of what I feel should be the balance that hip hop should always have, because it's a balance. That's the balance. And I think hip hop is at its best health when it's balanced.
Yes.
Not when it's all the way conscious, you know, and pretentious, or all the way gangster and advocating all the, you know, what is it, misogyny or whatever. Like it's got to be balanced, bro. And then in the middle, you know, you have everything in the middle. So I think that when it's balanced, you know, that's when hip hop is healthy. And I feel that NWA, that period, that era, NWA and Public Enemy was the most balanced, and they kind of were like the same groups from different spectrums. And you see that by the way that Ice Cube was able to just go to the Bomb Squad and create a project. That shows you how they were almost the same groups from a different spectrum, different sides of the spectrum. So those 2 were pivotal to me. And then, you know, there's a lot of artists, you know, I mean, because I just, as a DJ, it's hard for me to ever talk about specifics or lists, because as a DJ, there's so much in my Rolodex of music that it's difficult. Like I could tell you, like, a Redman was a big deal to me, and it still is a big deal to me. Wu-Tang, obviously, Souls of Mischief. You know, to this day, 93 Till, we started creating. That's my theme song. So the Alcoholics, the whole Liquid crew, King T, you know, that whole crew, like Kendrick for me right now is one of the most pivotal hip hop artists, you know, that we have, and it's crazy because he's already at this point an older artist to the young generation, you know,
right? Yeah,
and you know, so Kendrick and J. Cole, I think, you know, those two are just incredible artists that have really, to me, personify what I want from hip hop.
absolutely.
And what I want from hip hop, because I can't speak for the next person.
Are you saying what you want in terms of like what the evolution or the continuation of what hip hop?
What I want, I think that they're a perfect blend of giving you cerebral like content, like lyrical content, but with music that you could, you know, you could bounce to, you could enjoy, you could party with.
Because they remind me like when you mentioned those two, they remind me of what, you know, what a newer Black Thought or a newer like, you know, classic Jigga like Jay-Z or something like that. Like it reminds me of a lot of like when artists was like were rapping, like everybody was spitting, like even if it was, and it had like and you had and it had a bop to it, it was a bounce to it, but artists were actually rapping, you know what I mean? And I love that. I enjoy that.
They don't remind me of them in that way. In this, you know, I mean, I think you're meaning just lyrically. They
remind me in a sense, not them particularly, like, you know, Kendrick is Black Thought. I mean, in the sense of like when you listen to like how hip hop was in 97, 1997 was a crazy, amazing year for like DJs and artists and new artists coming out, and dudes was putting out dope music. So when I see like the Kendrick Lamars and the J. Cole's and stuff like that, like, and they're rapping, oh, yo, sign me up.
I'll tell you go ahead. What I was going to say, my thoughts on it, because Kendrick's one of my favorites of all time, and J. Cole's grown to be one of my favorites now. Because with Kendrick and J. Cole, you get an experience. You feel immersed in their concerts. You're not sitting there just listening to somebody singing your favorite songs. I can tell you when I went and saw Kendrick at Day in Las Vegas, he put on a full show. He's out there with the full robes on. He comes out with a whole choir. He has people doing the performances. He makes you feel the emotions of each song as you go from, you know, the spiritual to the discrimination to the turn up songs, everything. You're immersed in his showcase. And the same thing happened with J. Cole with his last album. Because before, my biggest issue with J. Cole was that his beats never had enough bounce to him to me. He always had like the boom bap type beats. And I'm like, J. Cole is missing out this whole wave that he could really just hit these modern beats and still give us the lyrics. And then this last album, he did that. He came in strong. He was still lyrical, and his performances were on fire. Like we went to Rolling Loud, and he had the backboard up with the flames going up in the background, and it was just, and he's out there just doing his thing. That's the type of energy that we need from hip hop artists, not just turn on the auto tune, get on stage, and do some rapping. You know,
right?
And that's,
I mean, they're you could tell, but the thing is, they're students of the game. You know, both of them, they know who their predecessors are. They respect the culture. They respect the history of the culture. When you come into it, that's the difference with a lot of. You'll notice that with the type of artists we're talking about, and you'll notice when an artist just is in it for the dollar and in it for the fame, they really don't care. And what's unfortunate is that it's not hard to grab people's attention and gain fame and be called all of a sudden a GOAT because you got a certain amount of followers and a certain amount of streams, but that music has no substance. And that, you know, but again, I'm a Gemini, so I'm going between
both sides.
Two ideas, you know, because I could see all points of view, or I try to at least, and I could, again, that becomes the balance. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's the balance. You need these Kendricks and these J. Cole's and the new ones that are coming up that are inspired by them, which there are a lot of them now. And you need the other stuff that maybe isn't as intelligent or as thought out. You need that as well, because sometimes you don't want to think. You just want to hang out. You want to chill. Like I used to say responsible ignorance. Like, you know.
And that makes sense. I'm definitely like that in the car. I'm like, all right, the conscious stuff, I'll wait till I'm at the crib chilling. But when I'm in the car and I'm like in a long drive or just trying to get in my mode, going to the gym or whatever, I want to hear something that's just slapping. Like, just put it on, I want to go.
That's it. That's it. But I think what we got to understand, I mean, nobody has to understand it. Again, it's all perspective. But is that hip hop to me is different. It's more than just a music genre.
Yeah.
It is an entire culture embodied by elements, the DJing, the MCing, the graffiti, the dancing, knowledge of self for some, beatboxing. You got its own vocabulary, its own slang. You got your own way of looking. You know who's hip hop for the most part. And it's like its own thing. So, and it's also a genre that was born out of disparity. And it was supposed to be, and it was, maybe it wasn't supposed to be, but it became something more than just music for people.
Absolutely. It was definitely hanging out on the block with family, having barbecues, chilling in the backyard, playing basketball, bumping the songs in the background. It's a whole growing up time period for us to where we were, getting familiarized with these songs as we were doing other activities.
But teaching, what I'm saying is the teaching aspect of it, because I learned a lot through hip hop growing up. I sifted through what was just a lyric, just to be a lyric, to rhyme, to some gem that was being dropped in there that even maybe the artist himself didn't quite know what they were saying. They grabbed something from an encyclopedia to make it rhyme, because back then you had to be lyrical. But maybe that gem, I had to go now into encyclopedia, and I learned it, and you start to learn about the world through their eyes, and you start to learn about different cities and whatever the plight is in that city, and you start to learn about history, whether it's someone talking about Black history, or if it's now some Mexican artist talking about what's going on in the Mexican community. Like, you start to learn about people through the music, and I felt that that's what hip hop kind of really did, and that was the importance and the power of hip hop. Which, if you want to get into conspiracy, why people would want to take it apart, saying, because it organized everybody. And it kind of showed, it unveiled a lot of things. But that's what I think hip hop is. That's the real power of hip hop. And so when we start talking about all these artists and all these things, I gravitate and I look to the ones that have substance, but not just substance, because it's still music. It's still got to make you move. You still got to be able to vibe with. So who can masterfully create substance, but with something that entertains you? And make good music. I can't just have a lyricist over some whack ass beat. You know what I'm saying? And I can't just have even a dope ass beat with a lyricist that is just a lyricist just to be a lyricist. Like, with no, he doesn't have a flow. Like, this motherfucker just the technical mind, brain. I need, I need you to be better than that. So
that makes sense.
And I'm going all over the place now, but another thing too, when you guys were talking, is that shows me a lot, is that we also got to be very patient and respectful to each other's generational point of view, because when I'm talking to you, I'm talking with my memory of hip hop and music going back to when I'm a kid in the 80s.
Right.
When I talk to an older person than me, they're talking, like we had. This is like a spoiler alert. We had Grandmaster Flash on the show, and that's going to be one of our first episodes for 2024 coming out. Nice. When I'm talking to someone like him, it's the knowledge of music going back to the 70s and 60s.
Right.
When I don't know how old you guys are, but when I'm talking to someone younger than me, they're going to be talking to me from the perspective of, growing up in the 90s and as far back as the 90s, or maybe even the late 90s, 2000s. And so everybody's perspective is different. And so we kind of have to try to understand everybody's generational perspective so that we could kind of find the equal ground and then say, okay, how do we all come to an equal place so that we can all want the best for this genre, this music, and this culture?
Absolutely. Yeah. So we're both 80s babies, and I have influences from the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s. Most of my music I picked up was in the 90s, but my mom was big into Prince. My dad was big into Funkadelic Parliament. So I had all those influences, and then I had my grandma's influences from the 20s all the way up to the 60s, 70s. So I was big into blues and jazz and things like that too. So I'm well versed in multiple decades of different things.
But there's a difference to be influenced that way. The influence I'm talking about is the living it influence.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? Like when we had Grandmaster Flash, he's
From
talking
90s,
about living it, you know, like being like very aware of what's going on in that time frame. That's a big difference because you have a totally different perspective. Like I can talk to you about the early 90s Miami hip hop scene, unlike anybody. Like you couldn't talk about it from that. You might know some artists from it, but you weren't immersed in it. You know what I'm saying?
In the beginning when
really, you know, like I have like all the missing pieces for someone who didn't live it. And that's what I'm trying to say. Like generationally, you might talk to someone that their perspective is going back because they lived it and they have the missing pieces, and we're missing a couple pieces, and we kind of don't see it the way they see it. You dig?
Of course, yeah. The perspective would be different because I'm like in that mindset. I was raised in the 90s, born in the 80s, because I was, 5 years old going into the 90s. So then, the Pacs, the Biggies, all the hip hop artists that were coming up during the 90s in that time frame. The Mace, all those guys were kind of my influences as I started listening. Camerons, all those guys, that was my influence. And then the 2000s is when I start hitting my teenage years, becoming an adult. So then, of course, I got all the influences from those decades as well. But yeah, I feel like it's pretty good. And I would say I'm pretty open to conversations with different decades, and I could pretty much fit in with those guys. But of course, I don't have all the perspective, the knowing of what they went through and why they went through or how it changed from their perspective.
Right. But I think it's always good to be open-minded to try to grasp that perspective or understand that you don't have that perspective, and
for sure,
equal grounding. Because I think that's what generationally we're separated in hip hop right now. There was a gap I feel that happened in the late 90s, early 2000s, and I think that gap continues to grow.
And that makes sense. Cool. So are there any upcoming projects or upcoming collaborations that you're particularly excited about for 2024?
I mean, I'm definitely working on more film projects.
Okay.
I have a film series called Coming Home, a documentary series where I travel to different countries and kind of explore the country through hip hop culture, a la Anthony Bourdain. If anybody's familiar with Anthony Bourdain, rest in peace to him.
For sure.
Bourdain.
So I have 6 films that I've already put out, and I'm looking to do a 7th film, hopefully end of this year. And I'm working on other film projects, and I'm coming out in a feature film as well. I got a little cameo that I can't really talk about yet. And then Drink Champs will continue, and I got the Fatherhoods podcast where me and my homies, we talk about fatherhood from a hip hop perspective, being hip hop dads, basically. And then, just supporting, my crew in their endeavors. We got Grumpy OGs, Drink Champ Sports. We got Smoke Champs.
Okay.
Shout out Shampoo.
We letting everybody, do what they got to do, leveraging the platform. And I mean, I'm sure I'm forgetting a lot of things, but just.
Are you guys on the Smoke Champs? Are they going to be more visuals or?
Yeah, we're figuring all that out now. Like, we're restructuring how Smoke Champs is going to work, and Drink Champs Sports. We got some interesting things coming up this year that integrates more Drink Champs and Drink Champs Sports together a little bit more. So there's going to be a lot of things happening this year for sure. I mean, every year we're trying to make a lot of things happen.
For sure.
Any events coming? You have any of the? Are there any events going to be this year? Any Crazy Hood events?
The event that we did, the I don't know, you didn't go to any of them, right? You weren't able to go.
I didn't get to go. No.
So the one that we did at Esquina de la Abuela in Alapata, which is a Wynwood adjacent, that was the 30th encore event we did. We're gonna do something like that every year on Crazy Hood Day or around Crazy Hood Day. It depends on the day it falls.
The weekend or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. So we're gonna be doing an annual event, and growing that event to be an annual thing. And we'll do a couple of things. We're doing now these like private, intimate artist sessions that we did one last Friday called Miami Meets Miami. My homie Paul, aka Drink Champ Sports, he's hosting that and putting that together, which we had a nice little turnout with some artists and local comedians and different people. So yeah, we're, you know, just continuing to work. You know, we're going to celebrate 8 years of Drink Champs in March. So that's a big deal.
Yeah, that's very, very good, you know, especially being a podcast to be able to be 8 years strong and, you know, continue to grow and build the demographic and the influences in hip hop. And you guys are touching a lot of the biggest artists, you know, and getting them on the podcast. So it's definitely something to be, you know, proud of doing. And especially, you know, Nori jumping in there, getting, you know, he's the one that makes it more on the controversial side. You know, I like how you guys balance each other out.
We're the balance.
Right.
Yeah, definitely.
And the funny part about when you said the balance too is that Kendrick and Kanye are both Geminis too. So
Gemini gang, bro.
Yeah, that's why it was funny to me. You know,
and Andre 3000.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
And
yeah,
you know, these are all top
and
artists.
Biggie and Pac.
With that. Oh, see,
man,
that tells you something. That's a lot of the top artists.
Gemini gang.
Oh, man.
That was pretty cool. Yeah, so definitely respect for that. Go ahead and let the people know, like, all the places they can find your, you know, your information, your podcast, all of those things. Just let them know where they can check out your stuff if they don't already know.
Yeah, Drink Champs is drinkchamps.com, and all the socials is everything at Drink Champs. And for me, my IG is at Who's Crazy, at DJ EFN on Twitter, aka X, and crazyhood.com is the company website. So yeah, it's pretty much everything.
Definitely. So we appreciate you coming on that type of talk, and we definitely look forward to all the projects you having coming up. And we want to link up with you in Miami and kind of check out the things that you have going on, Crazy Hood Day, all that good stuff. I'm K Good.
I'm Kehinde, ATO Worldwide.
And we appreciate you guys. That type of talk. So no, thank you for your time. We appreciate you coming on here and big up and everything.
Hell yeah.
Right,
Thank you for your time, man. Great convo, guys.